When it's time to begin, it's on the Review of Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Review of Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Fight Network site. It's Review of Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello and welcome to Review of Raw. I am John Pollock alongside Wai Ting.
Yeah.
Are you excited to chat about Raw?
So excited.
Feels like a long time since you and I have discussed wrestling, but it hasn't been that long.
I suppose with it's typically the week's work, it's very front end loaded.
Yeah.
We talk a lot on Monday night, Tuesday night, and then nothing.
So I kind of miss you.
It's
a long week.
That's nice.
I look forward to Monday.
That's nice. That's good.
This is the only time we talk, Wai.
You're
very private.
We could talk more if you'd like.
Well, we're going to chat plenty.
Yeah.
This Raw took place from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, where 10 years ago this month, Vince McMahon exploded in a limousine outside of this arena.
Oh, that's where this was.
Oh, yes, Wilkes-Barre.
Okay.
No one died in a limo on this show that we're aware of. Also, were you aware that Sunday night we had the Extreme Rules event in the exact same arena as the Great American Bash 1998?
I had no clue.
Different name now, but same venue.
Wow.
The Royal Farms Arena, previously a Baltimore Arena.
Wow. Interesting.
And it's also the same arena where I learned on Monday night that Jim Ross was calling a WCW event and had to pass a kidney stone while he was calling another Great American Bash event.
How much time do you spend doing this research on the arenas that Raw takes place?
This research came my way tonight.
Wow. Oh, somebody did it for you.
No, actually, not for the kidney stone. That information was offered to me.
Oh, okay. Maybe by Jim Ross himself.
Yes, maybe.
Oh, wow. And you will be appearing on Jim Ross's show.
I will be Tuesday night on the Ross Report, chatting about many different topics.
So do check that out if you're a fan of John.
Well, let's chat about Raw, because there aren't too many fans of John. But there are fans of this episode of Raw. It started off with Bray Wyatt coming out to start the show, and I thought the announcers from the get-go did a great job of putting over the main event. It was huge. Booker says, in no other sport would you have a match like that and have to come back the next night. Aren't too many fatal five-ways going on in the NFL or the NBA or any other sports. But I just thought the announcers, it's always great when you can have a fantastic match like they did in the main event, but you gotta reinforce it the next night if someone missed it. And for those that did watch it, you're being applauded for your time spent.
It certainly helps when the match was actually good and, all their kind of praising of it.
The first House of Horrors. It was historic.
Could actually be believable, and it gives them credibility.
Yes. Yeah. I really enjoyed that match.
Yeah,
I think I like it
great.
More 24 hours after the fact when I was going back and talking about it. So Bray says that last night was the beginning of the end. He was going to slay the beast and save everyone from damnation. But his sword was taken from him and placed through his heart.
Oh, wow.
God, this was like a fucking Death from Above lyrics or something. This guy, I don't know. Like, is there something about Brock we're not aware of? Like, he's carrying, like, the smallpox or something that Bray is only aware of that he's trying to save us from?
Okay. You're referring to...
He keeps going on about the Beast and how he's going to save everyone from the Beast.
Well, that's the Bray Wyatt character, and also it's how they've been positioning Brock as, this kind of terrible thing that nobody wants to face, But
save us from what? Translate this. What's he going to do?
He's
coming to kill people?
Bray is saying that he is supposed to be the one who is worthy enough to take on and slay.
But he's not. We learned the night before he wasn't.
Right.
He needs to reevaluate his
He's saying
efforts.
he should have been.
Well, he is still alive, confirmed. And he is also a god, debatable. And he is here to cast judgment on all that are guilty, such as Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. This is when I started to picture him with a gavel as a judge. And one by one, they will all pay, and it starts with Roman Reigns. So I have no goddamn idea what he said here, but it was designed for Roman Reigns to come out.
Okay, but do you want Bray Wyatt to start speaking like a normal person?
Yes.
I don't. This is the character. He wouldn't be the character if he didn't talk like this. I mean, I do obviously agree that many weeks he gets kind of too much in this type of character to the point where you don't really understand what he's saying. But I thought in this instance he had a direct target for his words, and he essentially just came out and said he wants to get revenge on everybody who prevented him from winning the match last night.
Reigns comes out, lots of boos as he enters, and chants of Roman sucks. And then they're chanting back and forth, some pro, some against. And Reigns just says, "This is why I'm the guy."
The reaction is intense for him, and good or bad, they are framing it like it is an overwhelming positive for Roman Reigns.
And then he just attacks Bray for running his mouth, and it leads to the start of our very long 20-minute opener here with Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns. Mm-hmm. Sister Abigail got teased immediately, but it was avoided, and then Bray ducked the Superman punch, and Bray went to the floor as they went through our first commercial break. Bray was in control. He hit a DDT. The audience was cheering for him, and Booker explained the wear and tear from last night, and that tonight someone's going to move up and someone's going to move down. So putting some stakes to this match in the rankings.
Sure.
Reigns caught him with a Samoan drop out of the corner, but then Bray stopped Reigns again. They go through a second commercial break. They traded big boots. Then Reigns, for one of many times, called for the Superman punch, and Bray did his spider walk, and this so frightened Roman that he ended up missing with a Superman punch and taking a Uranagi for a near fall from Bray. Reigns then powerbombed Bray out of the corner for a 2 count, calls for the Superman punch, misses again, runs into the corner, but then comes out. This time hits it, getting a near fall. And then Reigns starts shaking the ropes a la Jim Hellwig. And the crowd kind of got into this. There were some that were standing and cheering him as he just was shaking the ropes. And then he set up for a spear. Bray rolled to the floor. Anyway, we go through. Sister Abigail gets countered with a roll-up. They're up. And this time Reigns hits the Superman punch and the spear, gets the win. And that was that.
Roman wins. Yeah, it felt like it was largely just Roman getting his heat back after last night, so he's still very much positioned at the very top of the card, despite losing the match last night. Bray, on the other hand, probably sinks a little lower. I thought it was a very slow and simple match, and personally kind of found it quite boring, but that is also, keep in mind we did skip out on like 6 minutes of it. Those 6 minutes during commercials could have been amazing.
Sure.
But I can't really criticize it, because it's an opening TV match, and also because this crowd seemed intense throughout it. Largely, I think, thanks to Roman.
There was also this huge lariat by Bray on the floor that Corey called slaughterous, which my Microsoft Word is not acknowledging.
Oh, slaughterous.
The red underline is just piercing my eyes at the moment. So we'll chat later, but it looks like Bray is figured into a program. Mm-hmm. What happens with Roman Reigns in the immediate future? Is it Finn Balor?
It seems like Finn's the only one left. I mean, Strowman's not due back until SummerSlam. Is that correct?
I mean, it was going to be touch and go. He could be ready by July. So I guess there's that possibility if he is back in time.
It would either
do that.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie was backstage with Enzo and Cass, and Enzo doesn't know who the attackers are. He starts talking about ice cream, but he sells soft shirts and not soft serve. Cass is insulted at the fact that some people think he is behind these attacks to Enzo, and he's not going to let anything happen to Enzo. He's going to watch his back at all times, including in their match tonight. And then Enzo goes to flirt with Charlie, turns around, and Cass has already left him alone. And they come back, and Graves is not going to get involved in any of this, of what has been rumored that he has been spreading. Alexa Bliss and Bayley, we got a recap of this. This was the greatest recap ever. Michael Cole explained that the question going into Extreme Rules by the WWE Universe was whether Bayley could be extreme when she got a hold of the kendo stick. And they explained the answer was a resounding no. Wow. And they showed photos of these welts on Bayley's back that have sent Bayley home to recover. Poor Bayley. The answer was a resounding no.
She failed.
She failed.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like the division is not waiting for her return. It's moving on. Mm-hmm. Kurt Angle is on the phone and says it's driving him nuts, this mystery that we're not clued into yet, but it's really bothering Kurt. Maybe he's locked his phone.
He can't figure out
Doesn't know the password.
And he doesn't have Touch ID, obviously.
And he can't tweet out announcements, and therefore the board of directors is going to be furious. This general manager can't even promote.
Why would Corey have to show him that, though? That he's locked his own phone?
Because he's got, maybe he's got one of those guys that can geo or unlock a phone. Don't you know those phones you can get that are, what's the term called?
What?
Never mind. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Geo unlocking?
No, it's not geo unlocking. Someone will point this out to me. What the
I don't have no idea what you're talking about right now.
Neither do I. I'm not 100% sure. So, Kurt is still confused, as am I. Alexa walks in. She wants to be congratulated on her win at Extreme Rules and says she's done with Bayley and moving on. So she says she wants to celebrate her life tonight and pitches the idea of Alexa Bliss, This Is My Life. And Kurt calls it an awful idea and that last week was one of the worst segments in the history of Raw. Mm-hmm. And asks about her promising a title shot to Nia Jax way back. And says he's going to hold her to that promise and makes the title match for tonight between Alexa and Nia Jax.
It's nice to see that they're able to make fun of themselves and acknowledge that some of their work can actually be incredibly terrible. And
it's funny how that goes for some people, but for other segments, they would never do this.
Oh, such as?
If this were someone of substance coming out and bombing.
Right.
I don't know if this necessarily...
But in this case, they were able to spin it and put heat on Alexa as a result of it being bad.
Because it was like her idea to make fun of Bayley.
Right.
So
yeah.
It does have a kind of at least
It
some
backfired
connection to the story.
Yeah, it backfired.
It did. Elias Samson was in the ring, asks who wants to walk with Elias, and says he was inspired by a leaf falling on the side of the highway as he starts his song and refers to the city as Wilkes Bar and says that he has no hope for this city and is eventually interrupted by Dean Ambrose. These songs are getting great heat.
Mm-hmm.
This is a character that I did not see transitioning well to the main roster, but it has its place.
It really does. I wonder how long it will last and how they can translate this into a compelling in-ring character.
It's good for the live crowd because it's awful singing, it's awful playing, and you can insult the city.
Yeah.
And he can start doing crappy covers when this gets lame. Mm-hmm. There's lots he can do here. And it's quick, too. It's not as though he's going for 5 minutes where I think it would get intolerable at a certain part. It's quick. It's like a minute or less.
Like, I think, the jury is out whether or not this is real heat or if it's X-Pac heat. And I personally don't feel like it is X-Pac heat quite yet. I actually find these quite entertaining. If anything, just for the reactions.
It's going to come down to him injecting personality into this. And if
right.
And if that happens, he might have something because the gimmick will only go so far. Yeah. But it's working right now. I think that should be acknowledged.
He plays it so straight that I like it. Like if it was like over the top comedy and he was like deliberately like doing like what Gyllenhaal used to do and like with the shrieking singing, I think it'd be a lot worse.
Ambrose comes out to interrupt and they cut to a John Moxley sign in the crowd. And Ambrose attacks him. They go to the floor, sends him over the barricade, and Ambrose gets on the microphone. He wants The Miz, and he wants his IC title rematch now. But The Miz and Maurice appear on screen and says there's no rematch tonight. Instead, The Miz is having a comeback tour kickoff celebration. And while Ambrose is distracted listening to those two, Samson jumps Ambrose from behind and hits the swinging neckbreaker and leaves him in the ring.
Yeah, they say swinging neckbreaker, but it's really just like a crossroads, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. They're not going to... Well, I guess they could call it that because they have the rights to use the name Rhodes.
Sure.
Man, imagine that. Elias Rhodes.
Wow.
Elias Rhodes. Ambrose is in the back. He runs into Kurt Angle. He wants his rematch, but Angle says not tonight. He's negotiated for The Miz to have his celebration segment, and Angle orders him to take the night off and leave the building. Samoa Joe comes out. There was the graphic of all graphics for Great Balls of Fire with these two men's photos on them.
Was there any explanation about why they're naming the show Great Balls of Fire on the kickoff or the pay-per-view last night?
No, it's because they've got the Jerry Lee Lewis song. At least they've got that song for it.
Right, okay.
It'd be really weird if they had more of that. Oh, that goddamn song from Extreme Rules.
Saliva?
No, it was Hellfire by whoever the hell that was. If I hear that song ever again, my brain will just dry up into a raisin and pop out of my left eye socket.
The fact that they named it Great Balls of Fire, do you think that came before or after they acquired the rights to this song? Could it be just this
You know, what'd be
Jerry Lee
awesome
Lewis
is
open up?
if they don't even have the they can use it for a period of time, and then they're gonna have to revamp it on the network for perpetuity.
Yeah, and change it to.
Because I don't think that's a cheap song that you could just license out for nothing. Like, this feels like the name of this pay-per-view is actually more costly than Vengeance could have been. Something that they have in their catalog. On top of this, have you seen the logo?
No, I haven't.
On this
actually.
graphic?
Let me look it up. Great Balls of Fire.
I've seen a few versions of it.
Should I be Googling this?
Yeah, just type in Balls of Fire.
Great Balls of Fire.
Preferably with the Brock.
This one?
No.
The new one.
The new one that has Brock and
WWE.
the one that they showed this graphic of. I wonder if you go to the WWE website.
Okay. I'll keep talk about it.
Okay. So Joe is out. He says,
This one.
yeah.
It just looks like the Fast and the Furious logo.
Okay. But it also looks like two orange testicles.
Oh, that's for sure deliberate.
That's so lame.
Oh, it looks like a cock and balls right there. Yeah, for sure it's deliberate.
It's got to be deliberate
Oh,
because
of course.
it's too deliberate.
So this whole thing is just like a.
It's really stupid.
It's like an 8-year-old joke.
I didn't get
for
onto
Vince.
the whole anti-Great Balls of Fire name when they first announced it because I didn't really care that much. But it is stupid. It's really stupid.
Oh, it's so stupid that I almost kind of like it now.
The first time, well, let's get into this promo. Joe says he doesn't fear Brock Lesnar. He wants everything that Brock has, and he's going to take it from him. He wants his schedule, so he doesn't have to come here week after week. He wants the ability to instill fear in other men. He wants Paul Heyman as his advocate to run his errands. And most of all, he wants his Universal title. And live on pay-per-view at Great Balls of Fire, I'll be staring him in the eye and will take all of those things. Then Paul Heyman enters to a great reaction. And Heyman says that Brock doesn't fear Joe either, and that Joe probably likes that. Heyman says he worries for a living. He sees the opponents Brock has, and he gets concerned. That's what he does. And he compares this to a Rocky story and says that Joe is the worst case scenario because Joe wants to go to war with Lesnar and knows that Lesnar is not going to leave this ring the same way he entered and expects Joe to take a piece of Lesnar with him. He says it's his job to make sure that Lesnar is Joe's worst case scenario at Great Balls of Fire. And if Joe wants Lesnar, he's got him. And they shake hands. Now, the first half of this promo, we'll get to the second part.
Yeah.
But the first half.
I mean, I thought Joe was great. I really am enjoying his current promo style. He talks with a very methodical, cocky, bully-like tone. And, you know, in the past, I've been very critical of Joe's kind of like yelling, you know, especially in doing a lot of that in TNA.
I did not like that.
No, but he's found a more reeled in, like just kind of.
I don't want to say
menacing.
it's like Kenny Omega, but I think it's the same kind of thinking where it's
Oh, you
just,
mean like him now?
just changing up his delivery, where it's just it doesn't sound like anyone else.
Oh, he talks like he speaks as if. Okay, so this is gonna sound really nerdy, but so you know the Hulk, right?
Yes.
So you know how like in the movies the Hulk like just like he goes nuts, But like in the comics, there have been times where the Hulk has been able to Hulk out, but still have the brain capacity as Bruce Banner.
Duh.
And so this is what Samoa Joe sounds like to me. He's like the Hulk who has the brain of Bruce Banner. He's this guy who's in the
Jamoa So, by the way, is a way better name.
Okay, or Samosa Joe from Master of None.
Great.
Yeah. So it's as if this guy in this like big beastly body still has like a real thinking man's brain, and he talks like that, and I think he's awesome. And Heyman, of course, did a great job putting his opponent over, much like he did with Finn Balor. And I wonder what the point of the Finn Balor segment was, because
I think it's to tease it and keep that in the back of your head. Like, these are all matches you want to see, and they'll deliver them at some point.
Do you think at any point Balor was the one that was supposed to be the winner of that match?
I don't feel he was. I feel that they were going this direction. I mean, the stuff with Brock is not as much left up to how Vince feels the day of the show. Like, they kind of locked the stuff in with Brock more so than the other guys, that I feel they decided upon Joe, and that was probably the direction. But I don't feel the Balor thing was done just as something that will never be referenced and will be forgotten. I think that you will get to that at some point. So after this, by the way, in this one day, I have had 3 different references to this Joe and Lesnar thing compared in some way to stuff from Rocky. We had it with Heyman here. I heard Jim Ross make a comparison during our podcast, and Jimmy Corderas made another comparison of this program.
Which Rocky?
To different points of Rocky, but drawing this match into different elements of
Who's Rocky?
The movie, Rocky.
No, who's Rocky in this scenario?
Well, in this scenario, I don't know. Heyman explained this was like a Rocky story, like Joe, that they're going to do this. I don't think he meant it in the same kind of this underdog role. I don't know. I don't know what he said, but that was his verbiage here.
All right. Interesting.
Not really. You're not interested.
No, it's
at
not.
all,
Not interesting.
because
at
I
all.
can't get my facts together.
Yeah.
So Joe then puts the microphone down and starts speaking to Heyman, and said something bad is going to happen to you. And he starts to describe what Heyman is going to feel like when he starts to choke him, and that he is to take this message to Lesnar and explain in painful detail what this felt like as he applies the coquina clutch for a very rare physical angle involving Paul Heyman as the crowd is chanting, "We want Brock," and Joe ends by yelling, "And so do I," as he leaves. And this segment was outstanding.
Yeah.
This was the best I've seen of Joe, period. NXT or WWE thus far. And
Maybe even TNA.
This was...
Maybe not ROH, but
This wasn't the
maybe TNA.
headbutt with Kurt Angle segment.
I almost like this more than that.
This was
I
great.
mean, like the back and forth initially, the first part of this segment was good, but all the stuff that came afterwards, like, took it to another level, and certainly took Joe to another level. I thought the touch with the audio only coming from the camera mic,
Such a great
it was great,
addition.
and it made it legitimately scary, to see a man threaten this other older, very defenseless man. In something that makes you feel like you're not supposed to see it. And certainly the crowd in attendance was left in the dark. They couldn't hear what was going on. And I just thought it was such a nice touch, and I have no doubt it was partially the brainchild of Paul Heyman, Joe, and I'm sure whoever else in the back.
It forced you, if you're just watching Raw in the background, to stop and lean in and pay attention.
Definitely. It immediately positioned Brock as the babyface who's out to get revenge for his friend in this feud, and Joe just came out here. He to me, like in this segment, felt like a guy who has been waiting so long for an opportunity like this to perform in a role like this, and the guy he's hitting home runs. Like he performed like a real veteran master here in this segment. I thought he was great.
Yeah. Even just the cherry on top of this segment was Joe walking to the back as this picture-in-picture ad appeared on the screen for Diamond and Diamond Lawyers in case you've been hurt in an accident.
They do that now, like picture-in-picture ads?
On Sportsnet, they did it.
At the end of a segment.
During the segment,
During a segment.
And I thought they were only going to be... First of all, they've only been doing this on SmackDown, and this was a USA Network thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe this was a Sportsnet 360 thing. I don't know if US people saw this or not. I posted it. But it was great. I just thought this was awesome. This is how you product place.
Great advertising.
It was awesome. Like this match, you don't have to do a whole lot. People want the match. They're buzzing for the match. And I think that this build should be very different from your typical WWE style build for these two. This was just a great segment. After the break, Kurt Angle is upset with Joe. Maybe he was thinking, hey, you topped our segment.
No acknowledgement that
No.
the two have ever wrestled.
No, and you wouldn't think they would either.
But they mention AJ in New Japan, you know?
Yeah, very different though.
I guess.
TNA doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Like,
that's-
that chronology does not exist. Even though Booker T said in 2007, I was unstoppable tonight.
It exists in maybe their documentaries occasionally, but yeah, they make no acknowledgement.
It's mentioned at the bare minimum, and it is not going to be canon here for the show.
Did you feel like there was a tease of a potential match between the two?
A bit, yeah. They had Kurt and Joe arguing, and Joe says he's going to take out anyone that gets in the way of him and Lesnar, and asks Kurt, "Are you in my way?" So that was definitely a little tease. And
For
then
the first time ever.
Yep,
Kurt
exactly.
Angle, Samoa Joe.
Yeah. Okay. Nice to meet you, Kurt. Seth interrupted to answer for Kurt, saying no, he's not, and that Joe tried to end his career. Joe beat Balor, but not him at Extreme Rules, and he doesn't speak in riddles like Bray, and he's going to beat him one-on-one. And Angle makes the match for tonight, and Joe laughs, saying, "The mistakes we make," at Seth. And then Cole had to repeat this line, which was more awkward. So we have our main event and our down-the-road tease of Joe and Angle. Cesaro and Sheamus took on Rhino and Heath Slater. Cesaro pulled Rhino off the apron. Sheamus hit Slater with a bro kick and pinned him in a minute 41.
Quick match.
That was it. A rare win for the tag team champions of Raw. Sheamus then said that's how an intelligent team wins and asks who was happy that the Hardys returned. And Sheamus made fun of Jeff having a fake tooth now. Mentions that the Hardys will get a rematch, but they should be careful what they wish for. They don't set the bar. They are the bar.
What are your thoughts?
On their tagline, awful.
Yeah. Not a big fan. I mean, in ring, I think they're great, but their promos have been pretty weak, you know, especially as heels. I think Sheamus is obviously a little better as a heel promo, but Cesaro has not impressed me at all. And in the month that they've had as heels, I don't necessarily see that they've found themselves yet or found their voices yet. Now that they have the belts, I think it's more important that they have them, that they do find that voice than ever. But we'll see, you know.
Well, I feel all their tag matches now should be a race to get out of the ring fastest wins, just as they won the match.
Oh, right, yes. Or maybe it could be like a limbo match
Yeah, they can come up with alternative ways to beat the Hardys without them suffering pinfalls.
because they set the bar.
Oh, God. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Well, it is great balls of fire, and maybe we could have some games. TJP is backstage and runs into Neville. I love TJP segments, and it's all because of you. Kudos on the big win last night.
My favorite is you recapping TJP segments. I think that's what everybody
See, I
looks
watch
forward
him,
to.
and I picture you stating these lines, and that's why I enjoy them that much more.
Please recap this. I won't interrupt.
He mentions their deal about getting a title shot. They did the exact same thing with Nia and TJP, and they even brought it up, the fact that they're doing the same thing. Neville tells him, patience. And then TJP goes, "Dat, dat, 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 dat." Dat, 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 dat. He says, you have to hold up your end of the bargain. And Neville says, if you handle Mustafa Ali tonight, then I'll speak to Kurt Angle. So TJP is a mute, apparently, around figures of authority.
Yeah, I suppose he should have just went to Kurt himself, right? I think next time we should transcribe TJP segments and reenact them.
I was in a rush tonight. I was going to actually do that
That was
tonight.
great. Really? Yeah.
TJP and Mustafa Ali. At the beginning of this might have been lost on some people. Michael Cole plugged American Grit, which is John Cena's show that is returning this Sunday. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they ever promoted the first season because it's not on NBC or
Didn't
any
it
of
go head-to-head with something?
It might have, but I think the bigger issue was it's on another network because here they did not plug Fox. They just said, check your local listings. So it's more than they did for the first season, but still not enough that they're going to be actively plugging a Fox show.
Right.
TJP got the advantage. Dead crowd here. I don't know what it is, but it's just, it gets annoying at sometimes how, like apparently during the submission match on Sunday, the beach balls came out.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but that's what they're dealing with.
It's unfortunate.
They treat this as the intermission. And I'm not saying this match necessarily deserved the attention of everyone, but I was disappointed on Sunday night because I really enjoyed that match. But the crowd did not. And when Neville applied that Rings of Saturn, like that was a big spot, and there was nothing. And that tells me no one was watching 205 Live. Your poll has completely changed I thought it was a much more of a balance. And I think that it's not that we assume are watching.
It's unfortunate, but I don't know where you can, pinpoint the blame. Is it on
It's multiple
the poor
factors.
creative of the show? Is it the purple ropes? Or is it the fact that this audience is just conditioned not to see smaller guys as people to care about? But, whatever
Maybe Dana White's going to close down this division too.
Maybe.
Follow that story
more
on
like,
Monday?
More like DJP.
Oh,
Here,
man.
Begging for a title shot.
Well, maybe if the flyweight division is closed down, Demetrius can come over here.
Wow. Sure.
That'd be awesome.
I'd love to see it. If he can cut
DJ
promos,
and TJP.
if he can cut promos like he cut today.
Well,
Yeah.
just let him go for
Definitely.
50 minutes. So anyway, TJP got the advantage. Ali got out, went for a crossbody and then a tornado DDT. Goes for the inverted 450, knocked off the top, and then hit a detonation kick, and TJP gets the win in 242. So TJP celebrating on the ramp when Neville's pyro goes off, and he comes out. He spoke to Kurt Angle about his title shot, and Neville says he isn't a miracle worker, which he proved the night prior, because I would say he is, but not always, depending on the crowd. And then we had Neville state, as a king from the UK, I'm afraid I have some unfortunate news. And TJP tells him to go back and says, no, you go speak to Kurt again. And then Neville blasts him from behind, attacks him, drives his face into the stage floor. And then after all this, tells TJP he's got his shot tomorrow night.
He said this off of mic as well, but I felt like this one kind of needed to be said on the mic to really emphasize.
Yeah, we had to have, this time it was tougher because Corey had to say, did he just say what I thought he did?
Didn't
Repeat it for us.
Didn't really have the same mood as the Samoa Joe threat. Not that the crowd would have cared either way,
No.
unfortunately.
So, I mean, this was interesting because it feels like the women's division has kind of moved past Bayley, and kind of Austin Aries has kind of been moved on as well in this. I feel Aries this will kickstart the turn at some point.
Sure. I don't mind the decision. I think Neville is doing really well, and if you took the belt off of Neville,
It still would have been TJP probably.
Yeah. And Aries, I think, is great. He'd probably be a great heel. I'm really curious to know how he would do in the main roster, because I think he's somebody who deserves a chance at the main roster, even at his size. And
So maybe he's going to lose a Loser Leaves Town match on 205 Live.
and he'll
Loser leaves tape matches.
any cruiserweight would lose that match willingly.
Loser has to gain 5 pounds.
Wow.
Oh, that's it.
Oh my God. So how would they force that? Just like shove a donut in his mouth?
He'd have to weigh in.
He'd have to eat meat. Damn.
Man, they
Wow.
could tie it into his book. He's going against all his beliefs because
Yeah.
of what Neville has forced his life to change
Oh
into.
my God.
And fat Austin Aries comes to Raw.
Fat Austin
210 pounds.
Do you think there's anything to some of the tape he had around his neck? Do you think he could be banged up?
I thought that was all selling the injuries from Tuesday to get the submission over. Like that beatdown.
Right,
That's
okay.
what I read that as. So then we had a Shattered Dreams video with Goldust. He quoted Gone with the Wind, and that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and considers himself smitten. And says, I see the bigger motion picture here. And soon the biggest names and stars will be glittered in gold.
I'm still enjoying these,
Yeah.
purely for nostalgic purposes. You know, they feel and sound exactly like they would have back in the 90s.
Sasha is with Mickey and Dana Brooke in the locker room with, I think it was Dana who goes to Sasha. Those dance moves.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what
Were they good?
Alexa walks in, and then Sasha just immediately leaves. Bliss asks if they are upset that Nia is cutting the line for a title shot. So now Alexa's playing Demetrius Johnson. And Nia is TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah. Who's Errol Hawani
Um,
on this show?
Mike Rome. So she says that Dana, you've progressed so much this year. And Mickey, you're a trailblazer and a role model to the division. And says their division and their sisterhood may never be the same. Dana says, we don't have a Nia Jax problem. You have a Nia Jax problem. And they're going to be ringside for her match tonight with Nia. Then the announcers are speaking at the desk when Kurt comes out panicked to speak with Corey Graves and shows him something on his phone. And Graves comes back and ignores the follow-up questions from Michael Cole.
Okay, so this Kurt Angle thing, something's going on. Do you think it leads to Stephanie's return?
Probably. I like it. I like the
like
fact
it too.
that this isn't just a mystery for one segment and it's solved in the next. I think these things are very... I think as their numbers have gone down, I think if one of the byproducts is that we should have several week-long storylines, mysteries, which I don't want to say completely coincided with my talk.
The Hardy Boys?
No,
Oh,
of Riverdale.
oh, okay.
I gave that whole speech, and now we're getting Riverdale storylines, and you watch that ad for Great Balls of Fire. It's the exact Riverdale set.
I'll take your word for it. But wouldn't it be great if the Hardy Boys were on this case? And Nancy Drew, started to write Raw?
Oh, boy. So you think the Hardys are going to have a character change?
Yeah,
into
why not?
Detectives.
Yeah, they can't copyright that one, can they?
You know what? Probably. the Hardy Boys. It's amazing that they actually didn't run into any issues with the Hardy Boys' names.
You're right.
Because for the first 2 years of being aware of the Hardys,
Well,
I always thought of Frank and Joe.
That's why they're the Hardy Boys.
Yeah, they had to be boys. The Hardy Men. So Mike Rome, Hawani, is with Angle in the back, and Angle just says, it's a private matter. And the Revival were in the background. And then he goes and he leaves the arena.
So what's up with the Revival? Are they cleared? Is that dude cleared yet, or what?
I think he's right around. It was supposed to be 6 weeks, and I think we're right around 6 weeks.
So why debut him when they did? Because
he wasn't hurt yet. Broke his jaw.
Oh, you're right. No. I'm sorry. I meant 2 weeks ago. Why debut him?
Who are we talking about?
The Revival. Why reintroduce him on Raw?
I think they want them there as suspects of who's behind these attacks.
Right, and that's been blown off?
Not necessarily.
I would say so. The fact that the Angle said, he saw the Revival leave last night, and also the fact that they're just here not doing anything, not seeming like threats at all. To me, I thought...
Well, they're there for a reason.
Yeah, what's the reason?
Well, that's, I guess, part of the story.
Main event is the reason, probably. I'm just saying, if you're not going to use them in any meaningful manner, I don't think they should have debuted that early.
Well, I think you're jumping ahead saying they're not being used in they weren't just... didn't just happen to be in the background because they were in the shot. They were there for a reason.
But I didn't feel like they were teased as suspects at all. Now it's between Enzo and Cass.
Okay, well, I think for this one, you should let it play out because they're there.
So you think they could be suspects? They could be the culprits,
or they could be involved in something completely different, and they're
maybe
being
the
in the building is a.
They must be the ones who locked Kurt Angle's phone, changed the passcode.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wired it shut just like Dash's jaw.
Turn off his iCloud so he couldn't even.
Oh, man.
Find
Imagine
my
it's a
phone.
Kurt sex tape.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to.
Oh.
With who? Karen or?
Moving on. We had Dean Ambrose return as Kurt left. How did Kurt not see Dean when he left?
Using Rush?
He walked out the door, and before the door closed, Dean's arm held the door open. Second, whatever Kurt is worried about in terms of his job security, would walking out during the second hour of the show not be an infraction? You're running this show.
Well, we've all got personal emergencies that we have to leave for.
Well,
If there's a sex tape floating around, I'm sure he'd be excused.
well, Kurt's gotten through quite a lot.
Yeah.
He's been through a lot of issues and scandals.
Mm-hmm.
Kalisto and Titus O'Neil. They showed Akira Tozawa watching backstage because the Titus brand is trying to recruit him.
Yeah, this all took place on WWE.com in one of their sketches, and I think it really deserved to be aired because it otherwise gave you zero context really about what was going on. You just kind of saw Akira Tozawa with a brief explanation, and
then you never
there's
saw him again.
No meat to it.
Titus just got on top of Kalisto and tried to hook the tights. Kalisto reversed, and he hooked his trunks and pinned him in 1:23.
Yeah, this time Apollo taunts Titus for losing. So Apollo is not necessarily heel nor babyface. I think he's still very much a babyface from the looks of it. And this whole thing just kind of feels like it's more comedy right now.
It is comedy.
Yeah.
I thought him and Kalisto had a really good match on the kickoff show. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. Missed it.
Miz and Maurice are walking in the back, and then they see Big Cass laid out by the equipment. He's out cold. The funny part was Miz not aware of who it was. And it was kind of hard to tell this guy as he's laid out on his back, on his front. And so an official comes in to check on Cass. Enzo then runs in to check on him. And there's a gold chain laying there. And I thought they weren't even going to call attention to it. I'm like, wow, that's a really cool little detail they dropped.
Must
But
be.
They paid lots of attention to it.
Yeah. But I thought, who could it be? But Razor Ramon.
Oh, it's got to be.
It's got to be Scott Hall. The outsiders are back.
Man. After the break, Enzo is explaining that whoever attacked him a few weeks ago must have taken this chain and used it here on Cass because Cass is aware. And I like the fact that Cass or Enzo didn't flat out say, oh no, my chain, mine. They just gave each other a look like Cass knew what the chain was. And anyway, Enzo says, Enzo's panicked, not for Cass's well-being or the fact that his friend might have a concussion, but the fact that he may not have a partner for their tag match. So they're very much making Enzo, this guy's useless unless he's got Cass.
Yes.
And that's kind of his story now.
He's useless without Cass, yet he didn't seem to show that much concern for his friend when he was knocked out.
No, so you're led to believe it was... See,
So
this,
why
this
would
is
it
where
be-
we're getting into weird Russo territory.
This is...
It shouldn't be Enzo. It makes no sense to be Enzo.
Why would it be Enzo if he's helpless?
Yeah, and don't give me the, he faked his own attack. That's stupid.
Get the Hardys on the case.
They were, they were...
They weren't here.
There were a lot of people not on this show tonight. You had no Finn Balor, no Bailey, and no Hardys, which I believe, like, Matt's wife is due, like, really soon. So
okay.
that may have been a reason why. Or
Probably
they
re-
just didn't have any idea. But given how many people weren't on this show, I'm sure that, that was a lot of baby faces not on this show tonight. Not that this show missed it. I thought that this was a very good show. So anyway, The Miz then comes out. First, it's Maurice in the ring for the IC title celebration, and the ring is decorated with a red carpet, balloons, champagne, and a human being inside of a bear outfit with the word congratulations written on a sign. And Maurice introduces Miz. Miz comes out, and the crowd starts chanting, "You deserve it." And Miz says That chant would mean so much more if you didn't do it for every talent that wins something new. What a great shutdown.
Great. Threw him a compliment, threw it right back at him.
I love this. I just loved it.
Yeah.
He's the only one that deserves this title. And he goes to make a toast to the fans and asks them to lift their styrofoam cups up in the air while they have their glasses. Miz thanks Maurice for hiring this bear that he calls the Miz Bear. Maurice says, this was the best exchange ever. I didn't get the bear. Well, I didn't get the bear. If you didn't get the bear, then who got the bear? And they start arguing, and Miz gives the bear this look and just attacks it and hits it with the skull-crushing finale, thinking it was Dean Ambrose, reveals the person, and it's not Dean Ambrose. There was a mystery hiring of a bear, which went unanswered. Who hired this bear? Anyway, so then...
Who played this guy?
I don't know who it was.
Local,
Someone
This guy looked just like Ethan Page, and so a bunch of people were congratulating Ethan Page. And Ethan Page said, it wasn't me, it was Johnny Gargano.
That's funny. It did look like Ethan Page. I won't lie.
That was much skinnier Ethan Page.
It did look like him. So then someone wheels out a giant box, which was not for Alicia Fox, and it didn't have anthrax in it for Arya Daivari. And Miz just pretends, oh, what could be in the box, as he grabs a chair and starts attacking the box. And Maurice starts yelling at him to stop, saying, I got the box, as he's elbow dropping it, and reveals a grandfather clock with Maurice with the line of the night saying, it's timeless, just like you. And Miz ruined it. So she storms off and goes up the ramp as Miz is yelling, Je t'aime, je t'aime. Miz
That was amazing.
Then starts cutting a promo in the ring. There's a cameraman, and Miz starts to see the cameraman in the screen behind him take off his hat, and it's Dean Ambrose. And Dean hits him with the dirty deeds. Ambrose then nails these 3 balloons that spell out Miz. And the way he hit it, the Z just sadly flies off into the arena ceiling. And it was the best visual. And then the segment ended with Corey stating he was going to go see if Maurice needed to be consoled. So this guy's going to go after this dude's wife at the end of all of this.
No, he's just consoling her.
Well, whatever he was planning to do. This was awesome. Yeah. This was so great. This was everything that This Is Your Life segment was not. And I imagine it was similar people behind each segment, which is astounding. This was awesome. I love this segment.
It was fantastic. Unlike last week, this segment kept your interest throughout, had a great, well-executed payoff that was built up to...
It had near falls in it.
Yes.
Like they put like figurative near falls into this. And it built up to a great pop.
It was just very well done, and I thought all the performers involved did great jobs here, including Maurice, including the guy in the bear suit, including Dean Ambrose, and of course The Miz, who just did a masterful job here. I think it's hilarious the fact that she would buy him a grandfather clock and put it in a giant box. He beats up the box. It was great.
That elbow drop,
yeah,
I will remember forever.
No, this was wonderful.
Listen, I don't mean to be a dick here, but I know last week a lot of people just said, you know, it wasn't Alexa's fault. It was bad material. And it was bad material. And she had very little to work with. And no, Alexa Bliss is not The Rock. But let's be honest, Alexa is also not The Miz. Yeah. And this was just a great performance. And sometimes great performances can lift up average or poor creative. Last week was a disaster on all fronts, and I think blame can go over everywhere, and I think praise should be spread equally here. But this was an awesome segment.
Was this your favorite segment on the show?
No.
More so?
This wasn't even my favorite segment on the show, because that was the Joe and Heyman segment. Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows were in the ring next, and Enzo comes out and says he's a G, and he's 4G, because he's very well connected. And he's called in a favor. The Big Show, who comes out, as Enzo says, bada boom, biggest show in the ring. and hands Show a microphone and says Show's looking thin and asking if he's going to join 205 Live. And Enzo says he's 206 and a heavyweight, and he needed a certified G-iant. And neither of them are certified G-inis.
I'm sorry you had to repeat that.
Because he doesn't want to rub the Big Show the wrong way. And then Show went into this bizarre routine that I don't know if this was like an awful Andrew Dice Clay. I don't know what this was. But he talked about woolly mammoths and squirrels, comparing himself and Enzo, and led to him spelling soft.
It was him doing like a New York accent, doing Cass, basically.
Gotcha.
This went on for like a long time, almost to the point of irritation. But I think it was deliberate, to show that Enzo didn't seem to care that much about what was going on. Here his friend was laid out, and he doesn't come out all pissed off. He's coming out dancing, doing his usual shtick, really caring more about the match and entertaining the crowd than the welfare of his friend. So I feel like it was deliberate.
The match then began, and Booker said, when you're teaming with Enzo, you've got to do most of the work. And Show tagged in, choke slammed Carl, and then press slammed Enzo on top, and they won in 1:39. After the break, Enzo and Show are walking in the back, and Cass, wrapped up in saran wrap, walks up to them and accuses Big Show of jumping them. And he says, I'm a giant. I don't sneak. And Enzo ends up leaving with Big Cass and teasing some tension between Cass and Big Show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, a lot of celebrating after the match as well. Really, I think all done to let you think that Enzo is a suspect. But how does any of that make sense? It obviously doesn't, so it has to be a third party.
Well, maybe Enzo hired someone. That's the whole gimmick. He doesn't do anything himself.
So he hired somebody to attack himself? We're to assume that the same person who laid both men out is the same is one person, right?
Presumably, yes.
Yeah.
I hope this has a great payoff. I hope they have this mapped out, and this isn't just they're going week by week, and the Enzo thing got over well, so let's attack him again, and now let's do Cass. And if it ends up as Enzo, then I will rightfully say this was stupid.
Who could it be that would justify, I think, the weeks of build? Because I think at this point, if it was revealed to be the revival, it wouldn't be satisfying.
Maybe it's Carmella.
James Ellsworth.
Maybe.
Or Liv Morgan?
Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
What's the connection with
Isn't
Liv
she
Morgan?
dating Enzo?
Oh, they could be. I'm not up on my couples.
Oh.
Also, maybe.
All right.
We could have a whole host of girlfriends out there that are after them. Then we got another R-Truth segment, and he quoted a few good men. He basically went over all the same lines he did last week. There's nothing new here.
He did, yeah. R-Truth is kind of revealing that he hasn't really seen many movies outside of Shaft and Pulp Fiction.
And a few good men.
Yes. Of course, the You Can't Handle the Truth.
I don't think anyone in this company has seen movies that are not 21 years old.
Goldust, I imagine.
He quoted Gone with the Wind. He was going back to the 30s.
Yeah.
Anyway. Sorry, I meant to say have not seen any movies in the last 20 years.
I would hope that R-Truth has seen something past, these few movies. He's really losing out on this.
You saw Pulp Fiction. It's like, I'm done. This is it. This is the pinnacle. Doesn't get any better than this. I could get a whole series of promos out of this. Mike Rome interviewed Alexa, and she ran down the women's division on Raw. She's a goddess, but she's not treated like one. Alexa Bliss versus Nia Jax for the Raw women's title. Immediately, Mickey and Dana Brooke came out. Nia threw Bliss around, hit her with an avalanche, then missed on a second attempt, and Bliss got onto her back, but immediately thrown off. Bliss rolls to the floor. Mickey and Dana walk up to Alexa, and Alexa shoves them, and then they punch her, including bloodying her lip here. And the DQ is called at 2:21. Afterwards, Nia attacked Dana and Mickey. This match happening the day after you did that DQ stip, first of all, it just backed up every criticism that this is a stipulation when the heel is the one that is trying to sneak away with the title. And to me, it just put into perfect focus why that 20-minute match, this is how easy The Miz could have just manipulated things. And I just think watching them back to back, you understood why people just hated that stipulation on Sunday.
Yes. Yes, completely
Because
agree.
this is what it's used for a heel to sneak out, and it builds to something where finally the title can change hands on a DQ. The heel has no way out. Mm-hmm. The babyface is going to triumph. Paul Heyman was with a trainer, and Brock phoned him. And Heyman says that Lesnar needs to come to Raw next week to instill the fear of Brock Lesnar into Samoa Joe and unleash the beast. Mm-hmm. And Paul was sweating. Might have been some tears here. This man looked like someone that had been choked out.
Bloodshot eyes.
Yeah, he got all into it here. Mm-hmm. And then our final segment, it was Samoa Joe and Seth Rollins. Joe threw his towel at Rollins and then attacked as the bell rang. And early on, Rollins went for a suicide dive but got stopped with an enziguri.
Did you keep count of how many suicide dives?
Well, there were many attempts at them, and I don't know if any really landed, to be quite honest, Way.
A few landed. Well, I mean,
Seth was insane with some of these suicide dives.
You must have loved this.
Okay, there was one. He went and he had to grab hold of Joe's head because he overshot him. Then the next one, he cleared the head of Joe and just flew over top of him. It should have been an offensive maneuver for Joe by the looks of things. Like, Rollins just flew over this guy. Go watch those two suicide dives. Like, he could have killed himself going into this barricade. Barely grazed him on the second one. Anyway, Booker and Graves really put over Samoa Joe's jiu-jitsu and ground and pound, which Michael Cole didn't correct.
Jiu-jitsu and ground and pound.
Well, Michael Cole didn't refer to it as ground and pound back in the day. Remember pound and ground?
Oh.
Joe hit the snap power slam, had the heat for quite a while. Then we got the overshot suicide dives that gave Joe a breather as this maniac killed himself. Rollins hit a Falcon Arrow for a 2 count, a super kick, then climbed to the top for a frog splash, but the lights went out. When the lights came on, Rollins was on the mat and backed into the coquina clutch, and he went out cold, and Joe got the win. And that's how the show ended.
This show, I think, was largely about getting Samoa Joe over as the next challenger, really getting that coquina clutch over here. Bray interfered, yes, but I feel like it was about as clean of a win you could see for Samoa Joe over somebody like a Seth Rollins as you could get. And
I guess it redirects Seth away from Joe.
Yep. And to Bray, which I'm a little surprised by because I thought they'd go back to Finn versus Bray, which they seem to be setting up prior to the 5-way. But maybe they're saving that for a later time.
Yeah, this was a great Raw. This was one of the best Raws in I don't know how long.
Yeah, and with
really good show.
With a smaller roster, too. No Finn Balor, no Hardy
given
Boys.
who was not on this show, even more of a credit. I thought this was a show that usually when a Raw is really good, it's because they let the guys just go. And this was a credit to the creative. This was a show where the creative was, to me, way more important than the actual in-ring.
The matches were good. You had 2 very solid matches in Joe Rollins and also Roman versus Bray. But the 2 standout segments were certainly the Miz segment and also Samoa Joe and Paul Heyman. So definitely a very good Raw, I thought.
Yeah. So next week, Brock is on the show. I hope it's something just chaotic and can keep these 2 away. Like, I don't want to see them touch after next Monday. I don't want to see them touch next Monday. They shouldn't touch till the pay-per-view. And you can do a really creative build to this with whether it's you go and you do your videos and your training stuff and build this up like a fight, Joe beating guys with the coquina clutch while Lesnar's gone. Like, the less of Lesnar is actually a positive in this build.
How do you think they position him? Do you think because right now they are positioning Samoa Joe as a guy who is not afraid of Brock Lesnar. And do you think that they should maintain that, or do you think they should have Brock come in next week, and should he be the one who's scared of Joe, or do you have Joe show that he's scared of Brock after a certain while?
I don't want to show any kind of vulnerability for either of them. I think it should be a mass chaotic scene to keep these guys apart. I wouldn't want to replicate what they did with Brock and The Undertaker a few years ago, but something very significant. Like, this is Brock's match that he's run into.
So you're saying they should position Joe as an equal to Brock Lesnar?
Yes, I think
that would be tremendous. I just wonder if they would be willing to take that risk for a guy who is largely untested in the main event scene in the WWE. I think Joe certainly has all the capability, but it's just unusual unless you're a Braun Strowman, you know what I mean, for the WWE and Vince McMahon to want to position you like that.
Yeah, I don't see what the downside is. Why would you want to make either guy look weak going into this? I mean, this is like this fantasy fight, and it's the way they set this up tonight was really, really strong.
I hope the build for Joe continues because he was positioned great after this show.
So, yeah, definitely a thumbs up from me on Raw. I think the same for Wai. That's going to wrap it up. We will see what SmackDown counters with this week. They've got Kevin Owens and Shinsuke Nakamura announced for that show, and we will be back reviewing that show, 205 Live with Neville and TJP for the Cruiserweight title. So that's coming up Wednesday at liveaudiowrestling.com. Also, you can check out both parts of our Kenny Omega interview that many people have checked out and enjoyed. Go to liveaudiowrestling.com, youtube.com/liveaudiowrestling, and subscribe on iTunes.
And don't forget the Pro Wrestling Tees trivia contest.
Oh, yeah. Real tough one tonight. So tweet us at Law Radio with the answer, and you could win a Pro Wrestling Tees shirt from us to you.